Hi, I'm Rachel Barrow, and today we'll be talking about hypertension in adults age 60 and older. So, first, let's talk a little bit about what hypertension is. Here's a definition: hypertension, also referred to as high blood pressure, is the phenomenon of blood pushing against the walls of the arteries with chronically elevated force. And I chose this topic because of the high prevalence of hypertension, especially in the elderly. At the end of this semester, I'll be graduating and receiving my Master of Science in Health and Wellness Management. My career goal is to work as a wellness practitioner and a health coach. I anticipate that I will encounter many future clients who need guidance in either preventing or managing hypertension. Years ago, I spent some time working as a fitness instructor for the elderly. This was a really fun job, and it really made this population have a special place in my heart. So, why is hypertension even an issue? I mean, most people with hypertension are asymptomatic anyway, right? Hypertension is a big issue, and especially in the elderly. It greatly increases the risk of developing cardiovascular disease, and it's a leading cause of premature death. It can lead to heart attack, heart disease, stroke, kidney failure, sudden death from irregular heartbeat. Let's talk about the prevalence of hypertension by age. So, 22.4% of those age 18 to 39 are diagnosed with hypertension. But as we get older, this increases. 54.5% of those ages 40 to 59, and then a whopping 74.5% of those age 60 and up are diagnosed with hypertension. Let me tell you a little bit about your target population. So, we're going to be looking at Rest Haven Retirement Community. This is an independent living facility that serves the residents of North Alabama. There are currently 783 residents. The facilities include an indoor pool, an outdoor walking track, and a large open meeting room. As far as demographics, the average age of residents is 72. There is 61% female and 49% of the residents are male. While the residents of Rest Haven have free access to the community's amenities, very few of the residents utilize them. The facility also offers weekly exercise classes, but there are typically no more than 10 participants that attend each class. Instead, residents prefer to engage in social activities such as card games and playing bingo. This allows them to create really strong bonds with each other, but it doesn't provide much physical activity. Here's the problem that you need to address. 80% of Rest Haven residents have been diagnosed with hypertension. Now, if you remember, we said that 74% of those 60 and older are diagnosed with hypertension. So this 80% is even greater than that average that we see in that age population. 90% of those diagnosed are on prescription medication. And 50% of Rest Haven residents with hypertension do not have their high blood pressure well controlled. This is your role for this task. You are a facility wellness coordinator. You're the newly hired wellness coordinator for Rest Haven Retirement Community. You are a certified wellness practitioner credentialed through the National Wellness Alliance with a Master of Science in Health and Wellness Management. In light of the higher than average incidence of hypertension in residents at the facility, as well as in consideration of the seriousness of the long term risk factors of hypertension, you have been asked to create a wellness program that both educates the residents about the management and prevention of hypertension and also provides opportunities for the residents to make lifestyle changes that positively impact hypertension prevention and management. You have access to any of the facility's amenities, the ability to collaborate with the head of the facility's nutrition program. You have a generous budget and the authorization to hire two wellness assistants with the credentials of your choice. Now, this could be a physical therapist, or maybe a health coach, even a dietitian. You choose what your two assistants will be. Your task is to create a wellness intervention plan to help residents prevent and or manage hypertension based on the following best available evidence. Let's take a look at the best available evidence that you'll be using to guide you through this task. First up is the guideline, Hypertension Nutrition Management. This information comes from a guideline provided by Guideline Central. To find this guideline, I searched the Guidelines section of the Guideline Central website for the phrase high blood pressure. And what we learned from this guideline is this. As far as sodium intake should be reduced to between 1,500 milligrams and 2,000 milligrams per day. Along with a low sodium diet, the DASH diet has been shown to be effective in lowering blood pressure. Moderate to vigorous physical activity is recommended for 40 minutes, 3 or 4 times per week. And abstinence from alcohol has been shown to significantly reduce high blood pressure in those with hypertension. Now we'll look at a recommendation. Healthy diet and physical activity for cardiovascular disease prevention in adults with cardiovascular risk factors, behavioral counseling interventions. This information comes from a recommendation by the U.S. Preventive Services. To find this recommendation, I use the quote, search for recommendations option to search for the term hypertension. Here are some key points from this recommendation. So the USPSTF recommends offering or referring adults with CVD risk factors to behavioral counseling interventions to promote a healthy diet and physical activity. And that is a direct quote from the recommendation. Regardless of CVD risk status, everyone can benefit from consuming a healthy diet and engaging in appropriate physical activity. Behavioral counseling interventions can be one-on-one. They typically consist of an average of 12 sessions over 6 to 18 months and can be conducted by a wide range of trained professionals. Typical dietary advice consists of reducing sodium and dietary fat intake, increasing fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, and following the DASH or Mediterranean diet. Physical activity should include 90 to 180 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity per week. Here's some information from a snapshot provided by the Community Guide. The title is Heart Disease and Stroke Prevention, Team-Based Care to Improve Blood Pressure Control. And I said, this is from the Community Guide. To find this, I typed hypertension into the search bar at communityguide.com and completed a search. And here we learn that team-based care can be utilized to improve the control of blood pressure. The team includes members such as the individual, the primary care doctor, nurses, dietitians, pharmacists, community health workers, and social workers. The individual should be encouraged and empowered to be an active participant in their own care, but the team provides education, tools, and resources for the individual's self-management. Now we're going to look at an article titled Current Status and Therapeutic Considerations of Hypertension in the Elderly. This information comes from an article found at PubMed. To find this article, I searched PubMed for the terms hypertension and elderly. I filtered the search results for articles published within the last 10 years that also included a link to the free full text. And in this article, this is what you learn. According to study authors, hypertension is the most modifiable risk factor for cardiovascular events, including cardiac death, coronary heart disease, heart failure, and stroke. And it's really significant that this is a modifiable risk factor. So this makes the prevention and management of hypertension in the elderly critical, because if we can modify that risk factor of hypertension, we can work towards preventing those cardiovascular events that could be deadly. These considerations must be made when helping the elderly manage hypertension. So we need to think about, when we're working with the older population, we need to think about comorbidities, we need to think about frailty, and we need to think about dementia. Safety issues such as orthostatic hypotension and fall risk must be considered in this population. So, within the elderly, when we work on some interventions to help them prevent or manage hypertension, we really need to be aware of safety issues. Next up, we're going to look at an article titled Lifestyle Modifications and Non-Pharmacological Management in Elderly Hypertension. And this article was found in the UC Online Library. To find the article, I searched the article database for the terms hypertension and elderly and management. I filtered the search for peer-reviewed articles published within the last 10 years with free full text available. And what we learn in this article is that in the assessment of the effectiveness of a variety of lifestyle modifications and their impact on high blood pressure in the elderly, that this includes an extensive review of non-pharmacological intervention options that can be considered when planning a hypertension management intervention for the elderly. And this is a really helpful article because it is such an extensive look at all the different possible interventions. And as you read through this article, you can find information on physical activity, dietary adjustment, sodium, calcium, magnesium, the DASH diet. We've heard about that quite a few times. The Mediterranean diet, the Asian diet, alcohol, coffee, tea, body weight reduction, and stress relief. So this article kind of gives an overview of the successfulness or unsuccessfulness of these different interventions. Next, we have an article that I found on Google Scholar. And to find this article, I used the search terms in quote, hypertension and elderly and qualitative. And my goal with this was to find some evidence-based research, best available research that was qualitative. I thought it was important to include a qualitative study in this summary of research because it provides insight into the perceptions of our target population. So the article is entitled Barriers to Self-Care in Elderly People with Hypertension, a Qualitative Study. And in this study, 23 interviews were conducted that revealed barriers that were divided into three categories. And these were barriers identified by the interviewees that would hinder the care and management of hypertension. So the first category of barriers were attitude limitations, and these included lack of knowledge, fatalism and faith, non-scientific medical beliefs, and self-medication. The second were inefficient supportive barriers, and these included inadequate family support, current failures in the healthcare system, and not enough community support. And the third category of barriers were desperation barriers, including age-related problems, inability to pay medical bills, family problems, and feeling shame. And this information, as you plan your program or intervention, is very important because we need to consider what are the barriers that we are going to need to overcome to help the Rest Haven community with the hypertension problem. Here is our final piece of evidence. This is another article found on Google Scholar. I found this article by searching for the terms hypertension and elderly and randomized controlled trial. And I included the randomized controlled trial because I felt it was important to find some evidence that was a randomized controlled trial, which is the gold standard in quantitative research. So, the title of the article is The Effects of an Integrated Health Education and Exercise Program in Community Dwelling Older Adults with Hypertension, a Randomized Controlled Trial. So here's how the trial went. The methods were age 65 and older, must be diagnosed with hypertension. There were 45 participants that were randomly assigned to the control group or the intervention group. The intervention was a 12-week session of the HAHA program, which is the Healthy Aging and Happy Aging program. And they used elastic band exercise performed twice a week for 12 weeks. The results, there was a statistically significant reduction in blood pressure in the intervention group at the end of 12 weeks. So, the conclusion of this research is that integrated health programs such as the Healthy Aging and Happy Aging program can successfully be used to help elderly individuals with hypertension lower blood pressure. So you've made it this far and you've heard quite a bit of evidence regarding our topic of hypertension. Please use these evidence-based resources to create a wellness program to address the needs of the residents of Rest Haven Retirement Community, specifically targeting hypertension prevention and management. Here are the references to the resources so that you can go and dig a little bit deeper. Thank you and best wishes as you have your program completed.